Good afternoon, and welcome to today's webinar, Forecasting the Tides, Trends in the Cruise Industry. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Lisa Simonson, Associate Editor of Recommend Magazine, and I'll be the moderator of this webinar, which has been made possible by Recommend, as well as the following partners, Explora Journeys and Seabourn. So thank you. This webinar is a complement to the Cruise Travel Trends survey that was conducted on recommend.com, as well as the 2024 Cruise Travel Trends report, which will be available via email following this. During the conversation with our panel of travel advisor experts, Suzanne Moore, Charles Russell, and Jason Poole, we'll talk about cruise travel and offer tips on how you can sell to this vast market. But before we begin, a couple of housekeeping items. During the presentation, feel free to enter your questions in the chat box. We'll gather them together and hold a Q&A session at the end. Also, let us know where you're viewing us from and where you're joining us from. But don't worry if you miss anything in the chat. This webinar is being recorded, and you will receive a link via email to access the recording at your leisure. So let's start the webinar by having the panelists first. Thank you so much for being here. Having the panelists introduce themselves. So let's start with Suzanne Moore.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Moore, and I am actually somewhat of a newbie in the business. I had been retired, and I'm working with a very small boutique firm called Culture Traveler, and I specialize in luxury cruising and work with multi-generational groups as well as solo travelers. And that's sort of my passion, solo travelers, because I've done so many solo cruises myself.
Great. Thank you, Suzanne. Okay, Charles, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. Well, number one, I answer to Russ.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Russell.
My little interesting point, my first flight ever, I was 3 months old and we flew from Newark to Paris. And so I tell everybody I've been on the go ever since then. I'm 12 years in the industry after retiring from a healthcare career. I focus on, I want to say, the luxury end of contemporary family travel. So it's kind of a unique niche in and amongst itself.
That is. Thank you. And so let's hear from Jason Poole.
All right. Well, hello, I'm Jason Poole. I am with Cruise Planners. I've been in the industry for about 9 years now, and I focus on premium luxury, and I've really been focusing lately on expedition travel. I've just kind of found a passion for it and really been focusing on that. So thanks for having us. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. And just so you know, we've got people with us from Bowie, Maryland, Grand Junction, Colorado, New Jersey, Toronto, Orlando, Galveston. So it's great to see everybody from a cross section of the United States, and we're really looking forward to. We hope you learn a lot from our panelists. We're sure you will. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to start with Suzanne. How many years have you been working as a travel agent specializing in cruise travel?
Well, as I said, I'm a newbie. I've only been in the business 18 months, but I started cruising in 2021 during COVID, and which is a really interesting time to start cruising. And I've done 20 cruises in the last 3 years, self-funded. I mean, I was not in the business until last year, and to this date, I don't know what a fam looks like. But it is, I have multiple sclerosis. So for me, it is a way to travel that makes it very easy. I can, go from place to place and port to port. And it is also, as a solo traveler, I find it a wonderful way to meet people from all over the world and learn a lot about different cultures. So that's why I'm in the business now.
Oh, that sounds great. Thank you very much. And so Russell, what percentage of your overall bookings typically involve cruise vacations?
Oh, I'm gonna go with 85 to 90% of my
Oh,
bookings.
wow.
The cruise is not the entire vacation when a client comes to me to work with it. The cruise is the centerpiece of the vacation. And, I really decided 12 years ago when I entered the industry that I wanted to be able to tailor the experiences based off what the clients were looking for.
Mhm.
So we've basically become a turnkey type travel organization now, me and my team. And so we basically tell you, pack your bags, lock the front door, and we've got you from there.
Oh, that sounds great. Thank you. So, Jason, how do you stay updated on the latest trends and developments in the cruise industry?
I mean, first of all, your amazing publication is a great source of information and knowledge.
Of course.
So, first and foremost, we gotta recommend your publication. I also really try to stay up to date with lots of accounts on Instagram, lots of Facebook accounts.
Mhm.
My host agency, Cruise Planners, does a good job of sending out notifications. I listen to a few different podcasts on the travel industry. I enjoy reading the blogs, such as the mass market, like the Points Guy, to even some of the smaller esoteric ones about different regions. And look, I think having a conversation and a relationship with your BDMs is so important to keep up with the trends in their specific market with with that one vendor.
Mhm. Um, would you say there's maybe an age differential there as far as making sure that you're including social media?
I hope not. I mean, the answer is probably, but there shouldn't be.
Okay.
It's just like when I'm a little too young to be in the industry when the internet came out, but those who adapted
Mhm.
survived. Right? Now the fear is people talking about, oh my gosh,
Right.
AI is going to run us out of business. And I look at AI, I'm excited. I use it often.
Mhm.
I use it to kind of help me get ideas, how to formulate proposals and quotes. I hope agent is not a factor. If it is, I encourage people to embrace all of the technologies.
That sounds great. Thank you. Suzanne, you wanted to comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I use social media all the time. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on LinkedIn, and I find it when I write, if I'm on a cruise and I'm writing at the moment, so to speak, and somebody says, "Oh, you're on this cruise. How will I know you?" And I say, "Oh, well, I have my two pink canes," and people come up to me and go, "I've been reading all of your posts. Oh my goodness!" And I think and I'm a lot older than Jason, and I found that social media is a wonderful way to learn, to reach people, to see what the complaints are, which is actually a very interesting aspect of social media. And I think that it is, we use it all the time in our firm. So I think it's a great advocacy for our business.
Wonderful. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go now to you, Russell, then. And feel free, Jason and Suzanne, again, to jump in if you want to. What factors do you consider when suggesting a cruise itinerary to your clients?
Um, you know, Budget is always a concern, and it's a difficult conversation to have with a client. Many people, they feel like you're playing used car salesman if you ask what's your desired budget. Because if I give you 5,000, you're going to find something that fits exactly at 5,000 for me. But
Oh,
I
I
will
see.
take it further beyond just your budget, and I'll say, I need to understand how you like to travel. So knowing what type of hotels you stay in when you're on the road.
Hmm.
What's your preferred class of service when you're flying on an aircraft? These are all factors that can help me narrow down an itinerary, a line, the whole 9 yards. Usually the itinerary is a client's going to come to me and they're going to have one destination at least in mind when we're looking at an itinerary. So, it may not be as broad as the Med, but there'll be, I definitely want to be on a cruise that's going to get me to Dubrovnik. But there's my first hint, and it's like, okay, do you want a 1 week cruise that's going to visit Dubrovnik? Do you want something that's going to last a couple of weeks? And
Mhm.
So it takes a conversation, and I can usually pace that conversation and keep it to about 10 minutes. I would remind all the listeners that you are in control of that conversation. Never surrender your control when having that conversation, um,
Mm.
because you'll very quickly end up running down rabbit holes and not being able to meet everything. I'm sorry, I'm looking to see if I can turn my mic up anymore.
Yeah, I'm seeing some comments in the chat that Russell's
Just yell.
little
Just
on
start
the
yelling.
soft side. Yeah, just a
Okay,
bullhorn
yeah.
or something.
Yeah, well, the dogs already broke into the office, so if I start yelling, they'll bark.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Jason or anybody, how do you handle client concerns or questions regarding safety and security or even illness while on a cruise?
A fantastic question. I think there's actually two answers to that. The illness part is, I think, the easiest one to answer. Travel insurance. You have to have travel insurance. Like,
Okay.
you cannot have, everyone, you just have to have it, right? So people worry about getting sick on a cruise or anything. I mean, I'm in London right now. I bought travel insurance even though I'm not on a cruise. Okay. You have to have travel insurance. That's the easiest one. That's easy. Safety concerns, I think that is a can be a more difficult conversation. Like, there are regions of the world where it is not really safe for LGBT clients and travelers to visit.
Right.
So if I have a client and they want to go to a region that is not safe for them, I don't tell them no. I have a conversation. I let them know that it is likely going to be okay if they stay with the cruise line, stay with the excursion, but I would encourage them to look elsewhere to more friendly vacation spots. When people have just generic concerns about country A, country B, I remind them that, I mean, to be blunt, you're more likely to get shot in America than you are to be victim of a crime on a cruise or vacation somewhere else. So I think they're two different conversations.
Okay. Yeah, Suzanne.
Because I deal with so many solo travelers, most of whom are women, they do ask that question, am I going to be safe if I'm on a cruise? And what I tell them is there are security guards walking around all the time. You just don't know it. And the way I know that is because one night I was on a ship and I saw this man going in and out and he had on a uniform and I said, oh, excuse me, what do you do? And he said, oh, I'm the security guard. We have an entire security group and they monitor things. So they're very well aware of who is where and they monitor it. And if they sense any kind of thing untoward, they act very quickly. So that's what I tell, my clients who are solo women travelers. You are safe, you will be watched out for. They know, and for instance, when you get off the ship, they know when you've left. If you haven't come back, they can track that. So they're very mindful of their passenger list, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that does sound great.
Mhm.
Russell, would you like to comment on this as well?
Yeah, I would like to chime in to say that the cruise lines themselves are also checking the destinations and looking at the State Department warnings. And if something were to change, I mean, we've seen it happen along the Red Sea and the Middle East recently. Entire itineraries have been altered, canceled, changed because of security concerns in specific destinations. So,
Right.
there's that built in also.
Mhm. Okay, and to Suzanne's point too, there's just the technology is there to track each individual passenger versus signing in and out and, the way it used to be for some of us.
Yeah, the other thing I want to say is that for people with disabilities and they're worried about their safety, or that I find that the cruise lines are, again, much more aware whether it's accessible bathrooms or it's having wheelchairs to get people on and off the ship to excursions. They're much more mindful of their customer base than I think even 5 years ago, from what I understand. And I think that's also, something that people who have, any kind of disability who might be hesitant in traveling, if you have a travel advisor who has one on their own, or B, has clients that's the kinds of questions you can ask. It doesn't mean you can't travel. It just means you might have to travel differently. So I find that very important as well, a safety factor.
Okay, great. So stay there, Suzanne. I just want to know if you offer any additional services or packages to enhance the cruise experience for your clients.
It's funny you say that. I have found one of the things I'm doing more of is, I think it was to Jason's point or Russell's point, the cruise becomes the center and of the butterfly, so to speak. And then your wings are the before and the after. And I have 4 clients who I've said, oh, you're going to such and such. You've never been there before. Would you consider you're going to Australia? You're going to Japan? And they go, oh, that's a great idea. I think I'd like to arrive 5 days early and stay 5 days later. And so you do a package around that. So I do find that, and they're much more amenable to, if they're spending all that money for a cruise and B, the airfare, and they probably are not going to go back again. This is a one and done kind of thing, especially if they're older. This is on their bucket list. I find that that's working really, really well all over the world. It doesn't matter really where you are, but that's what I'm doing. And of course we sell the insurance, and because as Jason said, that's a must, especially of a certain age. Medical, travel interruption insurance, cancel for any reason. Those are all the aspects that we try to offer.
Okay. Okay, great. Did you want to add to that, Russell?
Yeah. In as far as, and I love the model of the butterfly, Suzanne. Thank you for that. I'm going to keep that one in mind for the future. I would go along with, I'm even making restaurant recommendations in locations now. Oh, if you're spending extra time in Tokyo, you absolutely need to go to my favorite garlic-based restaurant in Tokyo. And it's a very hidden secret. Well, not so secret, because you have to have reservations and you can't be even a minute late.
Okay.
But every single time.
I need the name of that one.
Yeah, I know.
Because I have 3. Yeah, I need the name of that restaurant.
Email me. I'll be happy to share it with you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, please feel free to put it into the chat as well, if anybody's interested in what, where you can't be a minute late. Ooh. So, Jason, in your opinion, what are the most important aspects of a cruise vacation for ensuring client satisfaction?
So there's not a one size fits all cruise or vacation for everybody. When I was a baby travel agent first starting out, I recommended what I knew, which was what I did a lot of cruising in my 20s and my early 30s. So you tended to sell what you know. And as I got older, traveled more, saw more of the spectrum, I have learned, a cruise on cruise line A is very different than a cruise on cruise line Y. So I think the most important aspect is having a conversation. And Russell talked about this at the beginning of the call. Like, let's qualify the clients, get to know them. What type of hotels do you stay in? Are you flying economy, premium, or are you flying business class? What is the purpose of this trip? I see ask party or relaxation. How important is food to you? How important is staying overnight or staying in destinations later at night? How important is sailing with 1,000 children versus 0 children? So I think the most important aspect of the cruise vacation, like planning, is understanding that your client's needs might be different than what you want, right? It blows my mind when I hear travel advisors say, oh, I don't like selling product X because I didn't like it. It's like, well, your client might, right? So it's having a conversation, qualifying the client, qualifying the reservation, and putting your client where they need to go.
Okay, great. So Russell wants to chime in on that one.
Yeah, so it's always my favorite early on in a conversation with a new to me client is what's the best cruise line?
Yeah, right. Right.
But there is no best. It's what is best for you. And we need to
Mm,
talk about all these factors
Yep.
that Jason mentioned so that I can find the best match for you.
Right. Okay.
So when people ask me that, I always say, "What's the best car?" A family with 6 kids, a Maserati is not the best car for them, right? It's subjective.
Oh, Suzanne, did you have a thought on that as well?
Yeah, well, I used to work on Wall Street, and that's where I retired from. And we always had, there's a rule, it's called know your customer rule. And you, as Russell and Jason have said, you qualify them. So I think that is essential. You essentially, you know your customer. What are their budgets? What are their, what are their likes or their dislikes, or food, or is it museums? So those are all the things that make for a, you ask the question, what makes a successful cruise? I think that that's what makes a successful cruise, really knowing the purpose of your client's trip and what they hope to get out of it. What do they see themselves liking or not liking? Do they want an all-inclusive cruise? Do they, some of the trends are to take the excursions out of the cruise fare, because some people want to book on their own. Some people have been there, they want to just walk around. They don't want that factored in. Some people want an all inclusive, so they don't have to think about it. So I think
Mm,
all those factors go into making sure that your client has the best time possible. So when they come home, they go, that was really for me. So
that sounds great. Thank you. So, Jason, how do you assist clients in selecting the most suitable cabin category for their needs and their preferences?
I'm going to answer it the same way. Qualify them. Have a conversation. I mean, I tend to start with, quoting the amenities of more of the suite products. If after having a conversation, that's the type of vacation they're looking for, they're not looking for a girls' spring break cruise, cramming 4 people in a room. I'm not quoting them the top suite on the Seven Seas Grandeur. Okay,
Right.
so it's you qualify them, and then I went to a sales training once with it was an all inclusive resort, and I will never forget what he said. He was talking about like their suite product and all the services that came with it. Like it had a butler, it had the lounge, like all these services, right? And he said something that I loved, and I used this. I totally understand that this is out of your price range. Completely get it. What are you willing to give up?
Hmm.
Do you want to give up the 10-night itinerary? Try to find one that's 7 and the same type of accommodation? Or do you still want the 10-night, but you want to go down in accommodation? Like, what is important to you? And it goes back to just, you and I we might answer that question differently, right? You and I might say, no, I want to do the 10 nights. I'll do the lesser room. Someone else might say, no, I want that room. I want that accommodation. I want those amenities. Let's go to a 7-night instead. So it's just having a conversation with the clients.
That's interesting. One of the attendees is saying asking open-ended questions and then practicing wait. Why am I talking? In other words, listen when your clients are telling you, or not what they're not telling you, even perhaps
Yep.
their wants and needs. Okay, thank you very much. So, Russell, I'm going to ask a question, but a couple of people are still having a hard time hearing you. If you could just speak up a little bit, that would be awesome. So, have you noticed any shifts in consumer preferences or behaviors regarding cruise travel in recent years?
Well, coming out of the pandemic, we all knew the revenge travel. Uh, and I can honestly say this many years down the road now, it's not revenge travel. People are not going back to their old spending habits when it comes to travel. They
Okay.
have upped the ante, they have upped their game, and they've decided they like it.
Mhm.
So that's my big trend right now, up and coming, just like Jason
Mhm.
told us earlier about expedition. So
Mhm.
I'm really starting to focus on expedition travel and smaller ship travel as well. So
Okay.
perfectly fitting with our sponsors today.
Oh,
Yep.
that's right. Thank you. Thank you. So Suzanne, are you selling luxury, family, combination of both? Kind of markets are you?
I do primarily luxury. And when we talk about family, we're talking about people who maybe have a 14 and 16-year-old. We're not talking about people who have younger children.
Right.
Uh, and they're fairly sophisticated. They've been traveling, like all their lives, like Russell when he was 3 months old going to Paris. These youngsters are very exposed to life in general. So traveling for them on a cruise, they participate, they get up, they go on the excursions. They're some of the new cruise lines, the luxury are putting in, I wouldn't say kids camp, but there's an environment for kids to be looked after. Maybe if the parents want to go to dinner, or they have special excursions for kids, um, modeled after like the Disney programs, but they're smaller ships. So they're beginning to pay attention to that, because I think you asked about trends. I think one of the trends is the working wealthy, the 45, 50-year-olds who may have 14 and 15-year-old children who have been exposed to a lot, and they want to take them on a cruise, and they want to take them on a luxury cruise. So that's where some of the cruise lines are starting to focus some of their resources into providing for these kids.
Hmm.
So
That's a good point. I hadn't heard that term before, but thank you. Thank you very much. Um, so Jason, how do you handle unforeseen circumstances, such as itinerary changes, cancellations, anything like that with your clients?
So I joke that I am addicted to my email. Okay. I live in my email. I am addicted to it. So I want my clients to be made aware of these itinerary changes, cancellations, security warnings, any flight changes, anything as quickly as I can. So I check my email. One, it comes to me automatically push, but I manually check it. I mean, it's probably a little, it might be too much, but it's hundreds of times a day, hundreds. Okay. And, you know, I want my clients to hear about something from me. It kills me when a client messages me and goes, "Hey, I heard we had an itinerary change on a Facebook group." And I'm like, like, I'm just like, I feel like I failed my job. So I really try to stay on top of it. But this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. How do you stay educated and informed, right? I read the emails that come in from vendors about news. I read publications, emails that come in. I read blog articles and the Instagram posts and Facebook posts because I want to be aware of those changes
Hmm.
as a professional, right? Our clients look to us as professionals. And if your attorney was not made aware of a new law and you had to inform your attorney of this new law, or you had to inform your accountant of a new like change in the code,
Mm,
you would not look at that person as a professional.
true.
We're the same way.
That's a good point. They're supposed to know, right?
For us to
Um,
know.
Suzanne, you had a comment on that?
I think what Jason says is really important. In addition to which, I think that when you call your client proactively and say, X, Y, and Z has just changed the itinerary, and I've looked at your options, and these are what your options are. I think you reinforce the fact that you are of value to your client. You're not just a agent, you are really an advisor. You are holding their hand through the process. And I think that they really appreciate that. Then they go, oh, okay. You're not just what I call it, you know, nickel, drive by, you're just not printing tickets, so to speak. You
Mhm.
really have a vested interest in your client having a wonderful, hassle-free time to the extent that you can make that happen. So, and I like Jason, I think I probably am with you. I'm on my emails all the time, and I think it's very important. And when I do call
It
a client,
is.
yeah, and I call a client and I say, oh, Heather, I've just got to notice your itinerary. She goes, well, I don't hear it. I didn't hear that. Yes, I know. I just heard. And then you can talk about what the options are. Do you want to cancel? Do you want to book another cruise? Do you want to stay on that cruise and maybe add an extension or add a pre-booking or something? So they very much appreciate your attention to detail, which goes back to what Russell said, attention to detail. I mean, it all sort of washes back and forth, I think.
That sounds good. In fact, somebody in the chat says, we can attest to the fact that Jason is in fact addicted to his emails. He's extremely responsive. He's quite impressive. So there you go.
I might have answered emails in the middle of the night if I can't sleep. I was like, well, I'll check it. While I'm awake, I'll just check
Did you
my
put
email.
someone up to that, Jason?
No, I did. I swear. I swear.
I'm kidding you.
And actually, I'm not gonna lie. I can feel my phone buzzing, and I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. You don't have to answer it. It's okay.
Okay, we're getting there. Okay, so thank you so much. So, Russell, what strategies do you employ to help clients find the best value for their money when they're booking a cruise?
That one's loaded. The best value, again, we're going back to that initial conversation. And many times when I allow them to wander off the path and let loose of the conversation, and we talk about their visit with Aunt Flo last week in the nursing home, I gather those tidbits that are going to give me the insight that I really need. And apologies, they have surrendered subconsciously information to me in those special parts of conversation. And so probably my biggest strategy is the relationship building and getting those repeat clients, because I have less of the qualifying conversation and more of the conversation about life, and I glean so much more insight.
Oh, that sounds great.
So it's really relationship building, I guess.
Awesome. So Jason, did you have a comment on that?
Yeah. So a trend or a habit, I should say, especially for newbies, is often just to be order takers, right? Clients reach out to you, they want to book cruise X, and you're like, no problem, here you go. How do I show value? I say, no problem. Here's the quote, here's the workup of cruise X. I'm just going to give you the option of, let's quote, Explorer Journeys. Did you know on Explorer Journeys, you get this included with the cruise fare? So if you're already going to pay, $10,000, make up a number, that $10,000 can go a lot further on a brand like Explorer Journeys. And then you add value by saying, and I've sailed on Explorer Journeys. Let me tell you about my experience on Explorer Journeys. And then again, it goes back to, you are the professional seller of travel. You are the expert. You are the authoritative source. So the value comes in having a travel advisor helping them make the most stretch for their dollar.
Well, that sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah,
go ahead, Suzanne. Sorry.
I also pay a lot of attention to the deck plans because certain people want to be far away from the food. They want to be able to walk down the hallway. People like to be near the elevator, near the stairs, whatever. So I am very conscious of the deck plans and what deck they want to be on. I mean, that's a conversation also that I find sometimes does not happen, especially if they haven't sailed a lot. Are they prone to motion sickness? Is, midship better for them? So those are also really important things, I think, that add to, as Jason said, your value. I have been on X, Y, and Z ship. I can tell you this is where you might want to be. This is the difference in the accommodations. So I think that those are all very important things that you can add to your client satisfaction.
And then last thing, and then we'll move on from it. I have a saying.
Fine.
No one wants a no, I always say no one wants a travel advisor that doesn't travel, right? And we add value in traveling is a skill,
Yeah.
right? You know, we everything we know is learned, right? We all did international transit for the first time. I mean, Russ was 3 months old, doesn't really remember it, but we all did. We all did the first time ever. When we have to get our bags in America and recheck them and go through security again. We all did that for the first time, right? Everything you know is learned. So the value is we've done it. Like I said earlier, I'm in London for 4 nights. My friends at home think I am insane. I don't. I think I'm showing my clients, yeah, you can do a long weekend in Europe. Let me show you how.
Mm-hmm. Good. I like that. I like that a lot. So, just taking a little turn, Russ, how do you address concerns about environmental sustainability and responsible tourism in the context of cruise? Is that coming up?
That conversation is beginning to come up more and more frequently with people. So I actually look at the vision forward with the different lines that I prefer to present to people. And I keep that sustainability and environmental impact in mind as I'm making those recommendations. Many of the newer builds are now switching to liquid propane gas propulsion instead of diesel propulsion. They're starting to have shore power that they can hook into when they're import, so the engines don't have to be running while they're import. And those are factors that I try to keep in mind as, you know, they were already meeting all the requirements they needed that were presented to them within the industry, but now they're taking it a step beyond.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so, and I know which lines are doing that. And if it's
Yeah.
important to you, you want to talk to me because I know that information.
Yep. I think that's becoming more and more of a factor in people's travel, whether it is in cruise lines or if it's land travel. And I find that some of the cruise lines, not only is it the environment, but it is the cultural environment when they're visiting like we were in the Amazon, and how your visit impacts. What can you do to enhance the residents or the natives of these areas? And I think that's also becoming very important. Do you want to go visit a school while you're, you know, on this particular cruise, if you're going to Guatemala or South America or Africa? So I think those are also becoming factors. So I view that also as environmental. It may be culturally environmental, but you know, and as Russell said, the ships today, they have the refillable water bottles, you know, that you don't have the plastic, they don't hand them out anymore. You used to go 3 or 4 years ago, everybody would get a plastic water bottle. That's been eliminated entirely. They do not change the sheets every day. They change the sheets every 3rd day. And because they know that we don't change our sheets every day at home. So why would you think that you should on a ship? So it reduces the water usage and the detergent, et cetera. So I think they're much, much more conscious, and I think that, and conscientious about it. And they're very protective about the environment that they're taking the cruise ships in and out of. So.
Right. And as you were talking about, leaving an area better than it was when you arrived. So that sounds really like a worthy goal.
This was not planned, but shout out to our sponsor. I do have a water bottle, Explorer Journeys here.
Okay, I'm gonna do you one better.
Yeah. I don't know why my lights just turned on. My apologies, but yeah, there you go. So
and there's my notebook, and there's my notebook from the inaugural.
Yep. No, but I love it. Like I love having the water bottle on the ship, just have it filled up everywhere. Suzanne, I completely agree.
And the great thing is not only do they, but they have, you can either have sparkling or flat water. I mean, they've really, they've gotten this down to a point where it is really consumer driven by taking care of the environment. It's fascinating. And not only Explorer, you mentioned, is one of the ones, but Silversea is doing it and Region is doing it. Everybody is beginning to focus on it. And as Russell said, the new builds are very much aware of it. You know, water, you know, filtration, et cetera, et cetera. So it's fascinating.
Great, thank you. So this might be a question that you all might want to weigh in on. What are the most popular cruise destinations you're getting requests for? We can start with Jason.
You know, I think as a travel advisor, part of our job should be customer education and inspiration. So, yes, we're all getting demand for the Med. We're all getting demands for Alaska. We talked about expedition travel increasing. That's everybody, right? But I've noticed what I really get demands for are what I'm doing.
Hmm.
When my clients see me in the Galapagos, they want to go to the Galapagos. When my clients see me doing an Alaska cruise tour, they then start talking to me about going to do an Alaskan cruise tour. So I think it is so important for us to educate our clients. And the only way to educate our clients is to educate. Yep. You gotta go to, there's a whole world out there. You gotta go see it.
I can't tell you how many times I'm on a cruise and people text me and go, "Oh, you're on the blah, 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 blah. Do you really like it? I'd like to book a cruise." Okay.
One, I never really sold Galapagos until I went.
Yep.
Right? I wasn't really selling a lot of Alaska until I went. I wasn't selling a lot of the Med until I, you know what I mean? So it's like, we have to set the course. Russ said it earlier. You're in control of the conversation. Set the course. Now, of course, be open to their, if they want to go somewhere else, right? Not everybody's can do, 20 nights in the Mediterranean or whatever, right? So the request I get, what I've been doing.
That's interesting. So they're reacting to you personally as well, which is nice.
Right. I mean, it's also like we talked about, an attorney or an accountant. You go to these professionals for advice, for guidance. You don't go to an attorney and say, I typed up the briefs. This is how we're going to file the case. No one would do that. No one would do that. So same thing in art. We need to be professional sellers of travel.
Yeah, go ahead, Suzette.
I also find that world events are dictating where people are going, like the Northern Lights or the eclipse, or a lot of people are going to the Arctic Circle. That what is happening in the world is inspiring people to say, "Oh, I can't tell you how many people go, I want to go see the Northern Lights," because that was a very big thing. And
how about musical concerts?
Pardon me?
How about concerts?
Absolute concerts, or going to Vienna for Christmas or the Christmas markets. Absolutely, you're absolutely right. But I think that you're inspired by maybe a TV show. I mean, who hasn't seen Emily in Paris and wants to go on a river cruise in Paris and go see where, I did that actually, not on a river cruise, but I went to all of the places where Emily in Paris films, and we saw the wall where they did this, and so I think that life inspires people, and
Bridgerton too.
Yeah, Bridgerton, exactly, Bridgerton, or Downton Abbey, So I think that those are also really interesting ways that people will call me and say, "I read about this, the next eclipses." I had a client who said the next total solar eclipse is, I don't know, 3 or 4 years down the road. They want to plan about going where that is. Okay.
I've had that. Yep. I've heard that. Yep.
And that's that's okay.
Yes, Russell.
Yeah, so I would chime in regarding most popular destinations. Don't try to be everything to everyone. Establish yourself as an expert in XYZ. It can be destination centric, it can be vendor centric, it can be whatever centric. And you know what? As long as you form a plan and have your written plan, you will plan to succeed. And that is going to become your most popular destination.
I agree.
Are selling.
All right. That sounds good. Oh, stay there, Russ.
Yeah.
Are there any emerging destinations that you're seeing that you think might become more popular in the future?
Iceland, Greenland in the world of cruising.
Okay.
Definitely more of the Arctic expedition, even Antarctic expedition.
Mm,
And I am willing to bet we are going to see increased demand for Patagonia in the
okay.
coming years.
Okay. That sounds good. Anybody else have a thought on emerging cruise destinations?
I was going to say exactly what Russ said. So
Yeah,
I will
100%.
just thumbs up what Russ said.
Okay,
I
good.
third that. I third that.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I see it. Thank you. So, Suzanne, what feedback mechanisms do you have in place to gather insights from your clients about their cruise experiences?
So I touch base with my client during their cruise. Is everything going okay? Is it meeting your expectations? Is there anything I can do from land side that might help if you have a problem? Sometimes you get, complaints via text message, this didn't go right. And then when they get back, I find picking up the phone and calling them the easiest thing. And then they give me feedback, and it's a two-way conversation. I ask the question and then I listen and I take notes. What did they like? What didn't they like? The same approach with a new client. I let them talk. It's their dime, and it's my job to listen to the things they liked, the things they didn't like, what would they change, whether it's the length of the cruise, whether it's the actual cruise line, food, whatever. That's and then I take notes and I put it in form, and I send an email, dear so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. And I reinforce the conversation we've had. So in the future, they know that I know what triggered them in either direction.
Oh, that sounds great. Somebody in the chat is saying they've been in the biz for over 30 years and sailed on over 200 cruises around the world. And their clients come to them because of recommendations they're making in the destinations themselves, like a restaurant in Santorini, a little known museum in Florence. So there's a bit of, personal knowledge or firsthand knowledge of a destination that seems to be important too.
I couldn't agree more. I just sent a whole family to the Mediterranean, pre-cruise, post, expensive. You know what they talked about? The dinner reservations I made for them in Athens. Okay, not the discounted flights I got them, not the transfers, not the private tours, the dinner reservations.
Dinner, yeah, food, right?
That's what they talked about. That's the food, right? That's what they talked about. I mean, I only got one group picture, and it was them at the restaurant. And I loved it. I loved it.
I have a client who's doing something in France, and I've done a lot of traveling in France. And I said, it's her husband's birthday. And I said, well, you have to go here. And she goes, I have FOMO talking to you.
Mm.
So, but it's the kind of knowledge. So we made all the reservations. And I think that, to Jason's point, and also to Russell's, I mean, the restaurants, you know what's good, what's not good, and how long the lead time is. Perhaps, if you're in Japan, it could be 6 months to get into a top, restaurant. And how do you navigate that? So I think those are the specialty information that we have, the special information we have that is not cookie cutter. And it's gained and gleaned from our own experiences, or from those that we know in the industry that we share with.
Yep.
Because I also
go ahead. Sorry.
And I was just gonna say, I think it's also really important. I, as a newbie, find going to the conferences and learning from other agents like Jason and Russell, it's so fascinating for me. I go, oh, I met somebody who was doing golf river cruises, and I was like, golf river cruises? Oh, there's an idea. And yeah, and so I'm putting together a whole thing because someone was very generous with their time and their information, helping me learn about the industry. So I also find, my peers are also critical in my success, or lack thereof.
Well, that's, yeah, I hadn't heard of that myself. So somebody wants to know, how do you do that? The dinner reservation? Is it just direct with the restaurant? How would
I picked up the phone and called.
Okay.
I mean, I checked the open table first. I was a long shot, but I just picked up the phone and called them. And I set a reminder for 2 weeks out to follow
Mhm.
up. And I set a reminder for the day before to follow up.
Okay, so much like
Doesn't
you
hurt.
would do it anywhere. Yeah,
Yeah,
Suzanne.
yeah.
Well, I think in Japan, you have to go through the concierge at the hotel because you can, the language barrier
Oh
is.
no, I mean, yes. This was just the one example of when I was, for Athens. But yes.
Mhm.
Believe it or not, American Express Platinum Concierge, you call them,
Yeah.
and if you
Yes.
cannot get into a restaurant, you call
Yep.
them and they work their magic. And which is, I'm sure,
Oh.
nobody really thinks about. Yeah. I was just like,
Mhm.
oh, my client has an American Express Platinum card. I'm going to call the concierge. And they said, okay, here's a list and we can't get them in here, but here's where we can get them in. And the client was like, oh, okay, that's great. So somebody,
Yep.
it's information.
Mhm. Well, and somebody else would like to know, how much of your business, how many people come to you with a bucket list? How often does that happen? Like, this is the trip of a lifetime. This is what I want to take, you know.
So I actually tell my clients not to have a bucket list because a bucket list implies when you've done it, you're done. I tell my clients to have a where's next list,
Mm,
right? But look, if somebody's bucket list is Antarctica with Seaborn and they do it, I don't want them to think, well, I'm done.
mm,
One and done.
It's like, no, now let's have you go to the Arctic, right? The Arctic and Antarctic are very different, right? And it's like if you with an expedition stop, let's talk about the Galapagos. Oh, if you like that, let's go look at Vendor X that does South Pacific expedition type of cruises. So I personally don't like the bucket list. I like a cruise planners, we call it where to next. Make a list of like where's next.
I love that. That sounds great.
I personally look at it as a leaky bucket because as it's emptying, it's just refilling it.
Right. Same concept. Same concept.
I like that. I like
I
that.
like that too. So I have a question for you. Oh, somebody says yes. LOL, Russ. Um, the trend toward people working on a cruise, and so the cruise line making those considerations with Starlink and not fax, that's ancient, but if you know what I mean, printers on board and things like that. Are you seeing people requesting that because so many people working from home post-pandemic? And cruise lines seem to be adapting to that as well. Are you seeing that?
100% yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
People
cruise
are
lines
wanting to know how fast is the internet after work.
Mm, hmm. Well, that's interesting. So yeah, go ahead, Suzanne.
the cruise lines are also beginning to build areas on the ship where you can go work, where you have dedicated space. So you don't have to work in your room if you don't want to. So you're seeing more of that, more work, life balance friendly cruising. So they're doing that. Well, that's what I'm doing. I'm on a cruise, I'm working.
Right.
Yeah.
Wasn't it Azamara who did did the whole separate office areas on their ships?
They're starting it. And
Yeah.
I think other people are catching up. And I think one of the most frequently asked questions of people traveling, if they want to do longer than normal cruises, instead of doing a week or 10-day cruise, they want to do 3 or 4 weeks, is how fast is the internet? Because I cannot be away from my office and out of touch for that long. So that enhances the business. So knowing that, I mean, there are certain cruise lines that have, super fast internet access. And it's also the number of devices that you can use simultaneously.
Yes.
Which can be very problematic.
Yeah.
Do you know who has lots of devices included in their suites? Explorer Journeys.
You get three per suite. And by the way, it is fantastic. It is fantastic.
It's so fast. It is because Explorer, this might be getting into the weeds, they utilize 2 different technologies and they piggyback off each other. So if one starts to fail, the other one serves as like the backup. Where on other cruise lines, they use one, and if it fails, you're just waiting for it to reconnect. Explorer has like redundancy.
I would say I was working with 2 of my colleagues. We were on a cruise on Explorer together, and we were in one suite and we were all on
It's fast.
It was
Yeah.
fast.
Fast.
Yeah, somebody wants to know what cruise you're on, Suzanne.
I'm on the new Oceana Vista, and I am going from Istanbul. We just left Istanbul. I don't know if you can see the sun is setting, and we're going to Izmir tomorrow, where Ephesus is, and then we're going to Dubrovnik. We're going to Croatia, Slovenia, Zvar, which I've never been to this part, and we end up in Venice. But the Vista's a gorgeous ship. She's a
Oh,
beautiful
sounds
ship.
great. I
Yeah.
wanted to let our attendees know that all of our panelists right now are traveling and relying on that internet that they're talking
Yeah.
about. So thank you so much for joining us while you're in transit. We really appreciate it. And
Thank you for having us.
we can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. And whatever you guys are doing, Taylor Swift concert, Jason, enjoy
Tomorrow night.
yourselves, okay?
Tomorrow night. I'm excited. I might be posting a Instagram story or 100.
All right.
Okay, what's your handle, Jason? We have to follow you.
Jason Pool Travel, all one word. Jason Pool
Okay.
Travel.
All right.
Thank you guys so
Yep.
much. It was a
All
pleasure.
right.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks,
Take
guys.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.